Have you ever felt someone pull you close and then suddenly push you away without any clear reason? One moment he feels warm, present, interested, the kind of attention that makes you feel seen. And then, without warning, something changes. His replies become slower, his energy becomes distant. The connection that once felt strong suddenly feels uncertain. And the most confusing part is this: nothing dramatic actually happened. There was no big argument, no clear ending, no explanation that makes everything make sense. Just a quiet shift. You start thinking about every small detail, every message, every conversation, every moment. You replay things in your mind again and again, trying to find the exact point where everything changed. Did you say something wrong? Did you show too much interest? Did you get too close? These questions can quietly take over your mind, because when someone pulls away without explanation, the human brain naturally searches for a reason. We want clarity. We want answers. We want to understand what went wrong, but sometimes the truth is not about something you did. Sometimes the truth lives inside the other person, and this is where many people misunderstand what they are experiencing. Because when a man has an avoidant pattern in love, his behavior can look confusing, even contradictory. He may show strong interest in the beginning. He may give attention, laughter, deep conversations, even moments that feel emotionally meaningful. You might feel that rare connection that people often talk about but rarely experience, the kind of connection that makes time move differently. Conversations feel effortless. Silence feels comfortable. You start believing that something real is forming between you. But then something strange begins to happen. As emotional closeness slowly grows, his behavior begins to change in small but noticeable ways. He becomes harder to read. Not cold, not angry, just distant. And distance creates confusion. Because when someone clearly rejects you, at least the situation becomes understandable. The mind may feel hurt, but the message is clear. Avoidant behavior is different. It sends mixed signals. One day he feels emotionally present, the next day he feels unavailable. One moment he seems deeply connected, the next moment he acts like he needs space. And this creates a powerful emotional puzzle. Your mind starts trying to solve it. You begin analyzing everything: his tone, his messages, the time he takes to respond, the way he acts when you see each other. Even the small details suddenly feel important. This is not weakness. This is human psychology. Our brains are designed to search for patterns. When something feels inconsistent, the mind works even harder to understand it. But what many people do not realize is that avoidant behavior often has nothing to do with the other person being not good enough. In fact, the opposite can sometimes be true. The closer someone gets emotionally, the more uncomfortable an avoidant person may begin to feel. Not because closeness is bad, but because closeness triggers something deeper inside their emotional system. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, intimacy can feel unfamiliar. Vulnerability can feel risky. Emotional dependence can feel like losing control. And the human mind protects itself from what it fears. Sometimes by building walls, sometimes by creating distance, sometimes by slowly pulling away just when things begin to feel real. This pattern can be incredibly confusing for the person on the other side, because you may still see moments where he cares, moments where his attention returns, moments where he seems warm again. Those moments can feel like hope. Like the connection is still there, like maybe things will go back to how they felt in the beginning. And because of those moments, many people stay emotionally invested much longer than they planned. They keep trying to understand the behavior. They keep trying to fix the distance. They keep hoping that if they just say the right thing or do the right thing, everything will become clear again. But the truth is often deeper than simple actions. Avoidant patterns are not random moods. They are emotional habits that formed over years, sometimes over decades. And once you understand how these patterns work, something powerful happens. Confusion begins to turn into clarity. Instead of constantly questioning yourself, you start recognizing the signs. Instead of blaming your own worth, you start understanding the emotional dynamics that are actually happening. And that awareness can completely change how you see relationships. Because when you understand the psychology behind avoidant behavior, you stop chasing explanations that will never come. You stop trying to decode every silence. You stop carrying emotional weight that was never yours to carry. But here's the most important part. Many people experience avoidant behavior without even realizing what they are dealing with. They simply feel the confusion, the emotional distance, the uncertainty. without understanding the deeper pattern behind it. And that lack of understanding can quietly drain confidence, emotional energy, and self-worth. So in this video, we are going to explore the deeper signs that reveal when a man is avoidant in love, not the obvious signals people usually talk about, but the subtle psychological patterns that often go unnoticed. Because once you see these patterns clearly, you begin to understand something powerful. Not every distance means lack of feelings. Sometimes distance reveals something else entirely, and the signs we are about to explore may completely change how you interpret the behavior of someone who pulls away just when love starts to feel real. So stay with me until the end, because the final insight may help you see a relationship situation in a way you never have before. When someone begins to pull away emotionally, the first reaction most people have is confusion. The mind searches for answers, trying to connect small details that might explain the sudden distance. But with an avoidant man, the explanation rarely appears in obvious ways. His behavior does not follow the patterns most people expect in relationships. In the early stage, he can feel surprisingly attentive. Conversations feel natural. He listens carefully. Sometimes he even shares parts of his life that he normally keeps private. These moments create a sense of closeness that feels rare. It feels like two people slowly building something meaningful together. But emotional closeness creates a hidden tension inside someone who struggles with avoidance. As connection begins to deepen, a quiet alarm begins to activate in his mind. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is subtle and internal. Something inside him begins to signal that things are becoming too emotionally intense. This is where the shift begins. He may start focusing more on work. He may suddenly appear busier than before. Conversations that once flowed easily become shorter. Messages that once came quickly now take longer to arrive. Nothing looks aggressive or hostile. It simply feels like his attention is slowly drifting away. For many people, this behavior feels personal. It feels like rejection. The natural thought becomes, maybe he is losing interest. But avoidant behavior is rarely about interest disappearing. It is about emotional comfort levels being challenged. Many avoidant individuals learned early in life that relying on others emotionally can lead to disappointment, pressure, or vulnerability they were never prepared to handle. Because of this, their minds develop a protective system. When emotional closeness grows beyond what feels safe, their instinct is to create space. This space is not always physical distance. Often it appears as emotional distance. You might notice he becomes more logical and less expressive. He may respond to emotional topics with short answers. If conversations begin to move toward deeper feelings, he may change the subject or bring humor into the moment to shift the tone. It is not that he cannot feel emotion. The truth is often the opposite. He feels the weight of emotional closeness very strongly. That intensity can make him uncomfortable, even if he genuinely likes the person he is connecting with, because closeness brings a silent question into his mind. What if this becomes something I cannot control? Avoidant individuals value independence deeply. Emotional dependence can feel like losing personal freedom. When relationships begin to move toward deeper commitment, that fear quietly appears in the background of their thoughts. So instead of moving closer, their instinct is to slow everything down. Sometimes they do this by becoming less available. Sometimes they create distractions. Sometimes they simply reduce the level of emotional openness they once showed. To the person experiencing this shift, it feels confusing because the connection once felt genuine. It did not feel imagined. The attention, the conversations, the shared moments all felt real, and they were real. But emotional patterns that develop over many years cannot disappear simply because someone meets a person they like. Avoidant behavior is not a conscious strategy. It is an automatic response the mind learned to protect itself. Imagine someone who has spent most of their life learning to rely only on themselves. Emotional independence becomes their normal way of living. Being responsible only for their own feelings feels safe and manageable. Then suddenly, a relationship appears that invites emotional closeness. That closeness may feel exciting at first. It may even feel refreshing. But as it grows deeper, it also introduces a level of vulnerability that feels unfamiliar. An unfamiliar emotional territory often triggers caution. This is why avoidant individuals sometimes send mixed signals. Their interest and their fear exist at the same time. One part of them enjoys the connection. Another part feels the urge to step back before things become too emotionally demanding. That internal conflict creates behavior that can feel inconsistent. There may be moments when he appears thoughtful and attentive again. He may reach out unexpectedly. Conversations may suddenly feel warm and engaging. Just when it seems like the connection is returning to normal, the distance may quietly appear again. This pattern can repeat itself many times. For the person on the receiving side, this emotional rhythm can feel exhausting. It creates uncertainty. It makes it difficult to understand where the relationship truly stands. Human psychology naturally seeks stability in relationships. Consistency builds trust. Predictable emotional presence creates security. But avoidant behavior interrupts that stability. It introduces a cycle where closeness and distance keep replacing each other. Many people react to this cycle by trying harder. They become more patient. They give more understanding. They hope that if they show enough care, the other person will eventually feel safe enough to stay emotionally present. Sometimes that patience comes from genuine compassion. Other times it comes from the hope that the connection will return to the warmth it once had. But understanding avoidant behavior requires seeing something important. This pattern is not created by the other person's effort. It is created by an internal emotional system that has been operating for years. Until someone becomes aware of that system and chooses to work through it, the pattern often continues repeating itself. And recognizing that truth changes the way you interpret the situation. Instead of seeing only confusion, you begin to see the structure behind the behavior. You begin to realize that the distance is not always about losing feelings. Sometimes it is the mind protecting itself from emotions it does not fully know how to handle. Once you begin to recognize this emotional pattern, certain behaviors start to make more sense. What once looked random slowly reveals a quiet structure. The actions may still feel confusing, but they no longer feel completely mysterious. One of the clearest signals appears in the rhythm of closeness and distance. At times, he may suddenly return with warmth. His tone becomes relaxed again. Conversations feel comfortable. You might notice him sharing stories, laughing more freely, or showing curiosity about your life. These moments can feel almost identical to the early stage when everything seemed simple and natural. During those moments, the connection can feel alive again. The emotional door appears open. It gives the impression that the distance has disappeared and that things are finally moving forward. But soon after that openness appears, the emotional energy changes again. Without warning, the same person who seemed present begins to withdraw into his own space. Communication slows down. Engagement becomes lighter. The depth that once existed fades back into something more surface level. This shift is not loud or dramatic. There is rarely a clear announcement that he needs distance. Instead, the change shows itself through small behaviors. He may answer questions briefly. He may avoid conversations that involve emotional vulnerability. When discussions begin to move toward feelings or future possibilities, he may gently redirect the topic toward something neutral. Sometimes humor becomes a shield. A serious moment may suddenly turn into a joke. Laughter can replace depth, not because the moment is funny, but because humor creates emotional safety. Another sign appears when the relationship starts to require clarity. At some point, most connections naturally move toward defining what the relationship actually means. People want to understand where they stand. They want reassurance that the connection has direction. For someone with avoidant tendencies, this moment can feel uncomfortable. Questions about commitment or emotional definition may feel like pressure. Even if the connection is enjoyable, the idea of labeling it can create internal resistance. He may respond with phrases that sound calm and reasonable. He might say he prefers to take things slowly. He may explain that he does not want to rush into anything serious. Sometimes he may even say he is not very good at relationships. These statements can sound honest, and in many cases they are. But they also reveal something deeper about his emotional comfort zone. Avoidant individuals often feel safer when relationships remain undefined. When things stay flexible, there is less pressure to maintain emotional expectations. The connection can exist without the weight of responsibility that commitment sometimes brings. Another pattern often appears in how he handles emotional intensity. When a moment becomes deeply personal, you may notice him stepping back slightly. If someone expresses strong feelings, appreciation, or vulnerability, he may react with quiet discomfort. He may acknowledge the moment, but his response might feel restrained. Instead of fully entering the emotional space, he may move the conversation in another direction. This behavior does not mean he feels nothing. In many cases, he feels the moment very strongly. But strong emotional energy can feel overwhelming to someone who is used to controlling their inner world carefully. So instead of moving closer into the emotional experience, his instinct is to stabilize the situation by creating a little space. Another sign appears in how he values independence. He may place great importance on personal freedom. His routines, his work, his personal time, and his private world often remain very important to him. When a relationship begins to require shared emotional responsibility, he may instinctively protect those independent spaces. This does not necessarily mean he rejects the connection. It simply means that maintaining personal autonomy feels essential to his sense of balance. Sometimes he may even appear highly capable in many areas of life. Avoidant individuals are often responsible, focused, and self-reliant. They manage their responsibilities well and rarely depend heavily on others for support. Because of this strength, many people initially see them as emotionally stable partners. But emotional independence can also create a challenge when deeper intimacy begins to grow. The closer two people become, the more they naturally rely on each other for emotional support. For someone who is used to carrying everything alone, this level of emotional sharing can feel unfamiliar. So rather than fully entering that shared emotional space, he may quietly reduce the level of closeness to restore the balance he is used to. These behaviors can create a situation where the connection feels meaningful yet unstable at the same time. Moments of warmth appear, followed by moments of distance. Signals of interest exist, but they do not always lead to consistent emotional availability. For the person experiencing this pattern, it can feel like standing near a door that keeps opening and closing. Each time the door opens, hope returns. Each time it closes, uncertainty grows. Understanding these signals does not remove the emotional complexity, but it reveals an important truth. The behavior follows a pattern. It is not random. It is not unpredictable chaos. It is the expression of a mind that values connection, yet struggles with the vulnerability that connection requires. When you finally begin to understand this emotional pattern, something important starts to shift inside you. The confusion slowly loses its power. What once felt like a personal rejection begins to reveal a deeper truth about human behavior. Many people spend months, sometimes years, trying to understand why someone acts close one moment and distant the next. They search for hidden meanings behind every message. They question their own value. They wonder if they should change something about themselves to make the connection stronger. But real clarity begins the moment you stop looking only at what you feel and start observing what consistently happens. Patterns never lie. When someone repeatedly moves away whenever emotional closeness grows, that behavior reveals something about their internal world. It shows how they manage feelings that feel overwhelming or difficult to handle. For many avoidant individuals, emotional safety has always meant maintaining control over their personal space. Being independent feels stable. Being responsible only for their own emotional needs feels predictable. A relationship changes that structure. When two people become deeply connected, emotions are shared. Decisions begin to involve both partners. Vulnerability becomes part of daily life. This level of openness can feel unfamiliar to someone who has spent most of their life protecting their inner world. So instead of moving deeper into that emotional space, they instinctively protect themselves, not with anger, not with cruelty, but with distance. Distance becomes their quiet shield, and once you see that shield clearly, you begin to understand something powerful. The behavior was never designed to hurt you. It was designed to protect them from emotional discomfort they may not fully understand themselves. This realization can change the way you respond. Instead of constantly asking why someone is not behaving differently, you begin asking a more important question. Is this the kind of emotional experience that truly supports your well-being? Love is not only about connection, it is also about stability, safety, and emotional consistency. A healthy bond allows both people to feel secure in the presence of each other. It creates an environment where vulnerability is welcomed instead of avoided. When emotional distance becomes a repeated cycle, the experience can slowly drain your energy. At first, you may try to be patient. You may offer understanding and compassion. These qualities come from a good place. They show emotional maturity and kindness. But patience should never require someone to abandon their own emotional needs. Every person deserves a relationship where communication feels natural, where closeness is not followed by unexplained withdrawal, where affection is not replaced by silence. Understanding avoidant behavior allows you to see the difference between caring about someone and being able to build a stable connection with them. Those two things are not always the same. Someone may appreciate you, respect you, and even feel emotionally drawn to you. Yet at the same time, they may struggle to maintain the level of openness that a healthy relationship requires. And recognizing that truth protects your sense of self. It reminds you that another person's emotional limitations are not a reflection of your worth. You are not responsible for repairing patterns that existed long before you entered someone's life. You are not required to prove your value through endless patience. Real love does not require constant emotional guessing. It does not force you to decode silence or interpret mixed signals. True connection moves toward understanding, not away from it. When two people feel safe with each other, emotional presence becomes natural. Conversations feel honest. Difficult moments are faced together instead of avoided. This kind of connection creates peace instead of confusion. And once you experience that level of emotional stability, you realize something very important. You deserve relationships that feel clear. You deserve interactions where interest is not hidden behind distance, where affection does not disappear when things begin to feel meaningful. Understanding the behavior of avoidant individuals is not about judging them. Everyone develops emotional patterns based on their life experiences. Many people carry habits they never consciously chose. But awareness gives you the ability to make healthier decisions about where you invest your emotional energy. You can choose connections that allow growth, understanding, and genuine closeness. And that choice begins with seeing people clearly, not through hope alone, but through consistent actions. Because the most powerful form of self-respect is recognizing when a situation cannot offer the emotional stability you deserve. When you reach that understanding, something changes inside you. You stop chasing answers, you stop questioning your value, and you begin protecting your peace.